We've all got our things. That's something we use to just take the edge off. A drink, maybe, or just scrolling endlessly on our phones. But what would happen if you just stopped? Today, we're diving into a really raw, totally unplanned 40-day journey that shows what it really feels like to stop numbing and just face whatever comes next.
And really, this is the key right here. There was no grand plan, no calendar with a big red circle on day 40. It was just a single decision, made over and over again, day after day, to just not numb. And to just wait and see what would happen when all that background noise finally went silent. This wasn't some challenge. It was a discovery.
Okay, this is such a critical idea to get our heads around. We're always told that these kinds of journeys are all about discipline, right? About willpower, just gritting your teeth and forcing your way through. But this story, it tells us something totally different. The real work was way, way deeper. It was this messy biological process of literally repairing the nervous system, figuring out who you are without your crutches, and slowly but surely rebuilding trust in yourself.
So, to understand the crossing, you have to understand what came before it, the descent. And look, this isn't just about making a list of bad habits. It's about seeing it for what it was, an entire system, built piece by piece, for one single purpose, to numb out. And man, this system was a well-oiled machine. See, alcohol wasn't just a drink. It was a regulator for a nervous system that was totally out of whack. Vaping was this constant, low-level hum of coping in the background. If you took those away, food would rush right in to fill the gap. Movement was avoided at all costs, which created this pod magnet, this reflex to just escape to the couch. And all of it, every single piece, just fed this relentless, brutal cycle of shame. It was a perfect loop of avoidance.
So what happens when you decide to just dismantle that system? Well, you enter what's called the wilderness. And this is where the real fight begins. And it's not a battle in your mind. It's a full-blown revolt from your body. And you have to get this part. This is so important. The most intense, the most difficult part of this whole thing. It was all happening on the inside. It was a messy, physical, completely private struggle that would never ever show up on some progress chart or get you a pat on the back. And here's what that revolt actually looked like. I mean, wow, it's intense. We're not just talking about poor sleep. We're talking fractured sleep, being jolted awake by adrenaline between 3 and 5 a.m., shaking hands, restless legs, this constant internal buzzing. And that feeling, oh man, that wired but completely exhausted feeling. This isn't just feeling a bit off. This is your nervous system in absolute, total chaos, screaming as it tries to figure out how to function without its usual tools. And right alongside all that physical chaos was this deep, psychological weirdness. This feeling that your internal compass is just shattered. It's one thing to feel pain. It's a whole other thing to feel fundamentally wrong and not even be able to name why. That's what living in the wilderness felt like. So, just when you think you might be through the worst of the physical stuff, that's when your mind starts to lay its own traps. This next phase is all about the really clever ways our brains try to sneak back to that familiar, comfortable numbness. And that leads to substitution and a whole lot of shame. And this experience gets a name: Substitution Hell. And look, this isn't a moral failing. It's not about being weak. It's biological. Your nervous system absolutely hates a vacuum. So when its main regulator, in this case alcohol, is suddenly gone, it will desperately scramble for anything else to calm things down. And this is what that looks like in the real world, right? A sugar rush to replace the alcohol buzz, way too much coffee, hours lost to mindless scrolling. The big insight here is that once you understand this is a pattern, it can stop that shame spiral in its tracks. It's not you failing, it's your nervous system just trying to do its job with whatever tools it has left. The source also coins this brilliant term, pub gravity. It's this idea that you're not just missing the substance itself. You're missing what that place represents. It's a pause button on life. It's a socially acceptable place where you're basically given permission to just stop trying so damn hard for a little while. And that idea leads to this huge question, a question that really gets to the heart of it all. What if the thing you're actually craving isn't the drink, but the relief? The release from having to be on and present and responsible for your own life 24/7. It's a powerful thought. Okay, so after navigating that physical revolt and all those mental traps, something finally begins to shift. This is the turning point. This is where the real breakthrough happens, and you start to see what the real problem was all along. So it turns out there's actually a predictable pattern
hidden inside all of that messiness. The first 10 days or so, that's just pure chaos. That's the body revolt. The middle 20, that's all about substitution, as the brain just scrambles for a replacement. But then, in those last 10 days, something new starts to happen. Regulation. The nervous system finally starts to find its own balance.
And you know, progress wasn't measured in some big, dramatic victory. It was found in these quiet wins, these tiny moments of integrity that literally no one else would ever notice. Things like choosing to take a walk instead of escaping, just sitting with a craving instead of immediately grabbing your phone. And this is a huge one, waking up without that awful familiar feeling of regret. These are the little deposits you make that slowly rebuild trust in yourself.
And all of those quiet wins, all that time spent just enduring, it all leads to this one central, massive realization, the one that changes everything. Alcohol isn't the problem. Avoiding discomfort is the problem. The fight was never really against a substance. It was against that deep, primal urge we all have to just run away from difficult feelings. Boredom, sadness, stress, you name it.
And with that one single insight, the entire strategy changes. It's no longer about trying to win a fight every single day. It becomes about something else entirely. It becomes about endurance, about learning to just sit with the discomfort long enough for it to pass, without reaching for that escape hatch.
So this brings us to the final part of the story, the crossing. And this isn't about arriving at some perfect, happy ending. It's about establishing a completely new baseline for how you operate in the world.
This line right here just perfectly captures the essence of the whole thing. It wasn't an act of strength, it was an act of presence. It was about just staying put through all the chaos and all the confusion for long enough that a terrified nervous system could finally learn that it was possible to be safe without being sedated.
And this is what that relearning actually looks like. This is the new normal. This is the after. Instead of avoiding movement, you're choosing it. Instead of needing a substance to connect with people, you find a calm social connection. And there it is again, that quiet win from before. Now it's just your reality, waking, without regret. That's the real payoff. That's mental clarity. That's what happens when your system finally learns to regulate itself.
And maybe the most profound takeaway of all is this. Day 40 was never the finish line. It was the starting line. It's the new baseline. The goal isn't to fight your old self in this endless daily battle. The goal is to simply outgrow that person, to make them irrelevant.
So in the end, we're left with this short, powerful idea that those difficult, messy, uncomfortable parts of our lives, they're not just obstacles we have to survive. They're productive. They're transformative. The wilderness works.